everybody. You're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in. We haven't been with you for a while, and it's because we've been very, very busy this past October. Real life got in the way. We just couldn't coordinate like any of the Thursdays or most of the other nights to do a show. So this is our first opportunity to come to you in I think a month. I think maybe like a little over.
It's been 4 weeks. Yeah, it's been a little over 4 weeks. Yeah.
I was starting to have withdrawals and shakes and stuff over in the corner.
Oh, that's sad. Yeah, okay.
Delirium tremens, maybe. I don't know. One of those.
You can see my cheese head. Yeah. Oh, so it probably would be best because we have a lot to talk about. We've all been up to a lot of stuff. Just what we've been up to. I just want to start the show with I'm not wearing the sunglasses to look cool, though I do. The main reason is on Sunday I got really, really sick. And on Monday I got diagnosed with acute gastroenteritis. Yay me. Poison in the system. Yay. So it's been a rough week. I was able to work yesterday and today remotely, of course. I couldn't have done it otherwise. But Monday and Tuesday were really rough. Monday, I mean, I'm the only person I know that can do this, sleep 20 hours in a day and still end up with bags under my eyes. Well, they're still there. So you see, I don't want to be alarming. So hence the sunglasses, but they are Pride sunglasses. Yay. And that
why are they Pride sunglasses?
Well, the reason they are Pride sunglasses, well, let me tell you what I did first in October and then afterwards. My big event comic wise in October was New York Comic Con. I believe this is I've been to every New York Comic Con apart from the first two. So I'm trying to think when the first one was. Was that 2008? Or 2006? I don't know. I think I've been going since at least 2008. I'd have to look at the calendar, but I've been going a very, very long time. I thought I was going to be going as a civilian, but luckily Reed came through again with the Pro Pass, so I was very happy for that. Thank you, approval process. And it's a little thing, but it makes a big difference in terms of getting into the areas. They also have a Press and Pro lounge, so there are some advantages to it to keep it up, not the least of which is cost. And because of hey, it's John Westhoff with the cool and are those both Dio Devil signs? Okay,
devil horns with the sunglasses. That's just for you, Bill.
There you go. Hi, John.
Uncanny resemblance.
Yeah. Like a rainbow in the dark. Okay. Yeah, I can't sing like Dio.
Very, very few people
so
can.
I was able to go to the show, met our friend David Toby, and I understand David also met Brian in his travels in the States. I was not as up to staying on my feet and walking as I have been in previous years. And I have to say this really was a wake-up call health-wise because it's getting to the point that it's not just that the feet are hurting, I'm getting exhausted. And I'm resigned that I want to lose at least 62 pounds by April 1st. That is my goal. I've already lost 6, but not the way I wanted. So that goes into something else that comes up. That goes into the sickness. And then last week, I was through my company. They invited me to attend the Out and Equal conference in Las Vegas this year, which is a corporate function for people who are identify as LGBTQIA plus. On the job, and it was a very, very worthwhile experience. But again, with the amount of pounds I'm carrying around, it was very difficult at various points to not just be sitting like a lump. And Vegas is definitely a city you need to walk around a bit. So
Yeah.
I still had a good time. I especially had a good time on my final night because I was at the party table, which was a fantastic experience. And if you see my shirt here, this is the inclusion shirt that my company has. Um, it's no secret I work for Deloitte, which is one of the big four accounting and consulting firms,
Mhm.
and we had the biggest presence out of all of the corporate interests. I think we had over 200 people
That's
there.
awesome.
Wow.
It was a
That is
little
fantastic.
frustrating because I'm the only person that was from my division. So I really didn't know anybody there, but I made some new friends, which is, can't beat that. That's always a good time.
No.
So this is kind of a play on the Deloitte Green Dot, but it's
Mhm.
with inclusion, and I really like the shirt. I also like the shirt because it kind of feels like I'm wearing the gay Death Star. So uh, it's, if people ask me, I think that's the first thing I'm going to say about it. So, but then again, when I got back, I got sick, and the voice may be a little ragged, and I may be on mute to cough and such. So just hope coming out of it, my anti, my what do you call them?
Antibodies,
No, the medicine you take.
Antihistamines.
No,
antibiotics.
not antibiotic.
Antibiotics.
My
This is
regimen
the
ends
worst game
tomorrow.
of charade.
I know.
Yeah, no syllables, no nothing.
Yeah.
You can just
My regimen ends tomorrow, so wish me luck that
awesome.
I'm out of the worst of this. And just being sick like this, I got to say, I don't wish this on anybody except maybe
Yeah.
Trump.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been rough. So,
Oh,
and
who's to say he
I'm
doesn't do
glad, I'm
that all the
so
time
glad
anyway?
I am in shape enough to talk to you guys because Tuesday night it was looking a little hairy.
Yeah,
So
yeah. We're gonna try not to go super late tonight because of that, just to make sure
no,
you can get some more
no,
rest
no,
and all
yeah.
that.
Which is
We
why
do
we.
have David
Hey, there's
popping in.
David
Hello,
Scopey.
David,
Hey.
who got to meet both Bill and Brian. Like we were
Yep.
saying, Bill at New York Comic Con, and then Brian in Seattle. So.
Yep. So, Steve, what about you? I know you've
So
been kind of poo-pooing what you've been up to, but it was still travel.
eh, yeah, yeah. So like my company just decided to do, work travel again. And so I went up to visit Wilmington, Delaware. Not for Comic Con, not for not for anything exciting. No conference or anything. Just a workshop. I got to be up there for 3 days, but I did get to see our friend Jay Yospa.
Mm-hmm.
He came by because he actually doesn't live too far from the in the
No.
area where I was staying, so that was pretty awesome. So we got to meet up. He was our guest back in Baltimore Comic Con last year as well. So it was nice to see him again. Although it was outside of the Baltimore Comic Con experience, it was still cool. So it wasn't as nerdy, but hey, if I'm in the room, then it's nerdy. Um, but yeah, that was pretty much my whole travel. But I've had a couple other things, happen family wise. I mean, we did have my mother-in-law came and stayed for a week, which was wonderful. She got to spend a lot of time with us, and my my sweet little Marlin. So she got to be there with him that week, and then unfortunately the day after I got back from Wilmington, we had to say goodbye to him. So, for those of you who have known him and met him, Marlon was my little
Which I'm glad to
dachshund.
say I'm one of. Which I'm very
Yeah,
glad to say.
he was such a sweet, loving dog. He loved people, and everyone just loved being around him. Especially us, Jason and myself. We picked him up. Uh, Indigenous Peoples Day / Columbus Day back in 2009, and we said goodbye to him, almost exactly 13 years later. So we did get a good 13 wonderful years with him. He was just such a sweet, sweet puppy.
He was.
And unfortunately, now I'm stuck with this little girl who is a beagle, and we all know that beagles are just so easy to deal with. They're just so calm, relaxed, and never cause problems. So she's gnawing on a rawhide chip right now. Knows that I'm talking about her. So, but yeah, so for the people who reached out who knew about Marlin, thank you again. Because I didn't post anything on Facebook or Instagram for this. It was a little too painful. I had a pretty bad week after that. But
Yeah.
now I'm back and I'm ready to talk about comics. So, but I also want to hear about what Caleb has been up to this past month, because it's also been a ton.
I'm over here. So yes, you guys, since we were able to speak last time, it's been busy, like Bill said. So work has been nonstop since. I'm pretty sure I haven't spoken to y'all, but I was able to meet up with our friend Brian Newberry in Memphis from the Memphis Comic Expo a few weeks ago, and we had a blast. It was great. He was kind enough. He has a brother who lives just outside of Memphis, so we were able to stay there with his brother. Amazing host. I love spending time with Brian. We had a wonderful time. Love him to death. So it was great just hanging out with him for a day. Did some back issue bin diving. Got to talk to some people that we love. Like got to catch up with Colin Bunn a little bit. So it was fun. Since then, like I said, just dived all into work. The Hubs had to go to Philadelphia for a week for his job. And so I was single dog dadding it with a beagle. So that was an adventure in and of itself. But just as soon as he got back, we got to spend one day together, and then flew off to the great city of Portland, Oregon for about a week. For my job, they had the international. It's the IMLA conference. It's the International Municipal Lawyers Association. So it's 4 days of, during the day, lots of CLEs, lots of conversations that you can go attend, which, it can, that sounds tedious and a little dry, and it can be, except for the presenters actually did a really good job with it. A lot of interesting information. So I went to things that would, could very have easily just put you in a coma, but they made it fun. So I actually really loved the CLE and the attending these meetings during the day, these lectures. Really, really great time. But I also got to see Portland. I got to spent a lot of time walking around, hit up a bunch of comic shops. Unfortunately, the day that I had like an entire afternoon clear, that I was just going to take a walking tour. Because you guys know, like, if you give me a city and some time, I'll put on my shoes and, fucking Uber. I'm just going to walk miles and miles and miles. But it was raining that day, so I didn't get to. So I had to Uber, just around and go see stuff. But got to hit up a bunch of shops. Actually, my one I want to recommend, Books with Pictures, is a Eisner winning comic. This doesn't really show up well on the thing, but Books with Pictures is an Eisner winning comic shop out of Portland. They're queer owned. They're very queer friendly. So had a blast. Picked up some stuff from there, which I'll show in a little bit. But just loved that shop. Had a super fun time. Also went to Excalibur and did some back issue bin diving there. Couldn't get too much because, again, was on a plane, but then came home and just have been, kind of working nonstop since. Obviously, I decided to get dressed up like your grandma's 1970s sofa today for the show. As I realized that's what I look like in this video. But no, had a great time. So it's been a whirlwind since last I saw you guys, but in a good way, in a really, really good way.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
And now we're all back on the Trident.
In the boxes.
The Trident.
In the boxes.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of travels, Brother Brian has been just all over the place. Unfortunately, he can't be with us again, but he's just.
But I think he does have a few weeks break now.
Yeah, good, because he hasn't sat still in about 6 months. Like, that man is just moving.
Seriously, and just crisscrossing the country. He hasn't been. Well, maybe he has. When was the last time he went back to Japan? Because he's everywhere. He is all places. Is our brother Brian. So hopefully we can get him into this place again pretty soon.
Yeah,
because we miss his face.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention that originally we were planning to talk about Black Adam. I know the two of you have seen it. I was gonna go Tuesday night, but I was on death's door, so
you had a good excuse.
I am hoping to see it between now and next Thursday. So we might be doing a show next Thursday just to catch up on
Yeah.
episode count, which would be great.
Well, you know me. And actually, even more fun, next Thursday, I'm wondering if I'm still going to be showing the effects of a new crown. Because
Oh,
this week I broke a filling, which is I
oh
do not
no!
recommend for anybody to do. And went and saw the dentist today, and they were like, "Well, we could try to redo the filling,
Okay,
but that would probably just destroy too much of your tooth. So we might as
okay,
well just go with the crown." Thanks.
okay. Or dental problems and dogs that passed away and gastroenteritis. Let's shed all
Let's
that.
talk
Let's
about
talk about
fun
good
stuff.
stuff. And one thing that's very fun is our geek gets. And we've been
Yay!
away for a month, so it should be piles for me. But um, Caleb, I know you went to New York Comic Con once.
Yeah,
For me, it's never been that big a shopping show just because the logistics of it are very tough. I
yeah,
imagine if I was an art collector, it would be a bigger show just because of the heavy concentration of artists in Artist Alley. But it's never been a very big show. I got a bunch of back issues, but again, had to be very judicious about how much I could lug around. Um, I did get a few things over the break. I always monitor the sales and becomes a new item over at Hamilton Books, and got some cool stuff there. I got the Silver Age collection of The Hawk and the Dove. I
nice.
know we
Hmm.
talked about this during the episode with Zach Crucy about Ditko.
I
So
was gonna say that's the
Yep.
Ditko stuff, right?
yeah, so it's
Yeah. Yeah.
everything in one little package. So it's still up
Awesome.
there if you're interested. Also got a great
Hmm.
2 DVD documentary about Patti Smith
I heard
called
her.
Patti Smith Hell Hath No Fury, The First Flush. And again, this was from that company Chrome Dreams that I highly
Right.
recommend. Yep.
Yeah.
Just got a few cheapo toys. My friend Greg found this at a Walgreens. So he got me America Chavez from the last Doctor Strange movie, the Marvel Legends, and this was also a rescue as I was buying clothes for the Vegas trip. He looked so sad. So from the most recent Space Jam movie, Batman is Bugs Bunny is Batman. Sorry. Had to pick him up. It looked so sad, being
Aw.
the only Space Jam toy in a section full of Transformers. So uh, I remedied that. While I was in Vegas, I finally got a chance to see the Beatles show that was done in collaboration with Cirque du Soleil, The Beatles Love. So there was this absolutely beautiful
Oh.
program.
Yeah.
I already had the soundtrack and the documentary that came out with this, but there is an entire Beatles shop there at the Mirage, which is actually where I was staying, which was great.
Mm.
Um, and if you don't care what things cost, it's a good shop for you. But it is nice to see like a gift shop concentrated on something I love. So uh,
Yeah.
those were pretty much my geek gets over the last few weeks. Again, it wasn't really a time for acquisitions. So
Yeah. For
that's
lugging stuff
me.
around too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Steve. Oh, Steve.
Well,
Steve. Forget it.
here. Oh. So again, I didn't because I didn't go to any cons. So usually at a con, like I will pick up because I love meeting artists, meeting writers, chatting with them, and buying their stuff because I love to support a lot of the creators that are there by picking up their trades or the one shots or whatever they're putting out. But I didn't go anywhere this month. Eh. Um, but I did get some Kickstarter stuff, which was pretty fantastic. I do love to, kickstart or support a lot of Kickstarters for comic creators, and one of the books that they were putting out, this is by Alex Smith and James Dillenbeck, are the Black Vans, which is sort of like a weird dystopia Philadelphia set series. They've just had the two right now, but they're working on the third one. But it's pretty cool. It's very queer friendly. I mean, your main character is obviously a big old chubby bear. which is always nice. Very, features predominantly people of color, and it's really cool. It's kind of like a weird sort of like 80s version of what a cyber future would be. So kind of like in between a little bit of Max Headroom and some other sort of like, maybe RoboCop a little bit. Like there's a lot of these kind of images and the style, which is just really cool. It's very frenetic, very, just a lot of action on every page. And it's just fun because I love seeing, big chubby hairy dudes, and there are plenty of them. So, but anyway, so that was one of the things I picked up. And then I think last month sometime I had, finally caught up with my other two here and picked up Gengoro Tagame's newest volume that was put out for The Passion of Gengoro Tagame. And I finally went back and was able to get volume 1. So now I've got all the smut, all of it, mine. So I'm happy about that. And that's pretty much it for the exciting stuff. But yeah, what did you get, Caleb?
Yeah.
So as you guys can see behind me, I've got like a little stack here. So do we want to start with art? Do we want to start with toys? Do we want to start with comics? What do we want to start with?
Whatever you want to do, baby.
All right. So
Go
I'll roll
counterclockwise.
It's your time in the spotlight.
I'll roll into art real quick. So actually, because I only have a few pieces of art to show off, probably the most 3 pieces of art, probably 4 times the price of most of this stuff. But so at the Memphis Comic Expo, I picked up a few things. I've been working on a Gargoyles jam piece. If you don't know me, I love gargoyles. And if you don't know what the phrase jam piece means, so in collecting art, some folks will get these 11 by 18 bristles and they'll segment them off into 2 pieces for a certain thing, and they'll get different artists to do different characters. So I've posted all of these on my Instagram and stuff. So if you follow me, check them out there. If you're listening to this, you need more of a visual representation. But I got Sean Crystal from the Inky Knuckles guys to do my Bronx dog, and I love it. He just looks mean. he looks like he's ready to go, and so I really love that. And then I had Dan Parent hook up a piece for me. Now Dan is, he's normally an Archie guy, but I had him do up a Wiccan and Hulkling piece for me. So this is I adore this. I love it.
Beautiful.
And then just got this in today, so I'm super excited. But we have a friend through the EOC community who is an amazing comic artist. He does a lot of really cool commissions. He's just done his first sequential art, but his name is Alex Regal. He's actually from Texas, and he does these really cool like 70s movie posters homages. So again, Gargoyles theme, but I had him do a Gargoyles piece that has all the characters in it.
Beautiful. Wow.
Full color, absolutely gorgeous. He above and beyond what I could have expected. Right? He just went all out, and I adore that. Like I am over the moon. So we'll keep with the Gargoyles theme. Brian Newberry, who I hung out with in Memphis, brought me this guy, Bronx from the Gargoyles, because he's a king among men. So I now have the neck up Bronx. So that's awesome. I don't know if you guys know, I'm a fan of metal music, Judas Priest. So I brought this little nugget home from my local comic shop. So I got a little teeny tiny Rob, and so I love that. Picked this up at Memphis Comic Expo. I've never had one of these Marvel Masterworks figures, but it's fantastic.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you can see Moldman over here in the corner, but he's rocking there. He's got the entire team. Got a little mud monster there. So this is really cool. They have another one that's got Galactus and the Avengers in it. So I'm gonna be in the market for that, but it's expensive. So
yeah.
We gotta let a few paychecks culminate. I did some back issue bin diving, so I picked up Submariner #9, the original series. This is actually the first appearance of the Serpent Crown, and arguably the first appearance of Set in comics, at least in Marvel comics. So some of the Conan stuff I think may have created it, but yeah, got some of my Marvel Comics Presents to flesh out that collection. Picked up some Conan stuff because I love the Conan. Got my dude Hulk. So had a great time back issue diving. Lot of comics at Memphis Comic Expo. I was really, really happy with that.
Yeah, I've
over-
heard that's a very good shopping show. That there's dealers that they really don't make it up farther north.
Dude, they don't, and like a lot of the. So I picked up some Conan, like old Conan Saga of Conan magazines. He was like, "Yeah, you pick 3 of them for $5, and they were priced at $5." So like, I stole them. I mean,
Yeah.
great stuff. While I was at Dan Parent's table, I picked up the Kevin Keller omnibus. So that's pretty cool to have on my shelf, along with a Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
I think I have that too. I have that too.
Nice. Yeah. I picked up a 4-pack of Alice Osman graphic novels. If you know who Alice Osman is, or if you've seen the show Heartstoppers, she is the writer and the artist on that graphic novel. This is some of her other works, so I'm really excited about reading those eventually. While I was in Portland, I picked up some really cool little zines from the local comic shops. This one's called Radlands Pinups by L Sub. And then this one is Hyperbolic Trajectories, and it has a cute little puppy on it. So I will read that.
Is it all about puppies? Or is
not all
just...
Oh God, I haven't thought of Big Guy. Oh, I haven't thought of Frank Miller's Big Guy and Rusty in so long.
$2. $2.
Nice.
I paid $2 for this.
$2?
Yeah,
very
so
nice.
Got that $2. But this was really cool. So if you've ever been to Portland, there is a store called Powell's Books. It is book mecca. I mean, it is just books galore, and they have a huge graphic novels and comic section. But I mean, floors and floors and floors of books. It's an amazing bookstore. I just happened to walk past a closed case and look down and saw this omnibus that is Sal Buscema and the Incredible Hulk. So I was like, I want to look at that. What could that be? That's cool. That's a cool thing. It's signed. It's signed by Sal Buscema. So I have Sal. I don't have any original Sal Buscema art, but I do have his signature that I will be keeping by my bedside to just lovingly play with. And I got a couple of records. It wouldn't be me if I didn't pick up a few vinyls. So big fan of John Legend. I think he's got a wonderful voice, very soulful. And then I picked this up only because it's my favorite subject to argue about with Bill. But Alice in Chains' Dirt.
Look, it's a great grunge album.
It's a wonderful metal album from the early 90s.
It's a great grunge album.
One of the best metal albums.
Grunge.
Since the early 90s. Very metal.
Wow. What does that say? Oh, am I hearing?
Metal.
Yeah, grunge. Grunge.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of R&B too.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
got that. Which you picked up a copy of that not too long ago too, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I didn't. I just showed you.
Oh, God. I thought you picked up a copy.
I just showed up for you. I would pick it up. I just, because
you probably got it in 4 other versions.
Well, I definitely don't have any Alice in Chains on vinyl. I definitely don't. Because I was in that age, you just didn't.
Yeah.
It was all CDs at that point. And even
CDs
if you came across a vinyl, I'd be like, I used to buy vinyl. And now you regret all that shit because there was those print runs were so tiny. Like a $14.99 album is now like $600 if you get one of those prints. John Legend was actually playing in Vegas while I was out there.
I would love to see him live.
So I made a judgment call because there were certain events I had to go to at night. And I decided to see the Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell show on Sunday instead of John Legend.
That good, huh?
Oh no!
It was awful. It was so bad. The 3 women were pretty good. The 3 female leads were pretty good. Beyond that, and this is also like a Vegas version, so. It plays without an intermission, and they cut out songs and all that because they try to fit them in. So it's 80 to 90 minutes. I didn't see it on Broadway. I certainly didn't see it on the West End. I can't believe that's the best story they could have come up with. I just can't believe it.
That's unfortunate.
It was so bad.
See, that's why I put up the documentary for you.
Yeah,
I put the documentary in the Plex for you.
I started watching that, but then the second season of The Vow took over. So.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Roger and I actually walked down the aisle to a John Legend song, so big fan of his. got some other books in the background that I picked up. They're all newer stuff. Flamer from last year, Mike Curato. The new
Great book.
90 book
Great
from
book.
Marjorie Liu and Sana Takata, and then the new Young Avengers omnibus. But I'll talk about those at a future date. But last but not least, and for you folks who are just watching this, the folks who are listening can't see, I picked up some really cool stickers. Little lasagna cat and a Oregon beaver with an umbrella, because why not? So that's all my gifts from the last few weeks, I think.
Okay, I think that's sufficient.
Awesome.
Now, we really don't have much to talk about in terms of news. New York Comic Con wasn't really a font of news. I think apart from what I was present for was the Next Generation cast being reunited on stage in advance of Picard, and seeing the first footage of Picard and Discovery. But that was one of those things where New York Comic Con was really leaning away from comics. This is the first year that Marvel's been back in a long time, but it wasn't really the same. It was much more film and video game content.
Yeah.
I did see though and this was a geek get because I got to have the physical, the premiere of Battle of the Super Sons, the new animated movie, and Caleb especially. It's like the comic come to life. You're gonna love it.
I gotta watch that.
On my list.
It is wonderful. I don't want to say the best DC animated movie because I have a big amount of affection for their treatment of the New Frontier. But this is this is pretty damn good.
Yeah, New Frontier is kind of like the peak for me. Like I actually really did like what they did in their sort of like New 52-ish animated universe.
Yeah,
that was all connected.
There's some that are really.
Very,
I think the ones that were based on the Superman Batman series, the Public Enemies.
Oh yeah, those were good too.
And then Apocalypse, those were great. And I saw Apocalypse was the first one I saw with an audience, and it's such a different experience seeing those with other people. It really is.
Hey.
If you can ever
do Power of Shazam was pretty good too. Oh gosh, that must be like 12 years old at this point.
Shazam? No, it's
Power of Shazam. It was basically
that was a short collection.
It was two. There were two short films for it. One of them was for the Spectre, and the other one was Shazam and Black Adam. Like basically introducing Billy Batson and Superman.
But that was like a short collection though.
It was only two though. I don't think they had a lot.
No, I think there's more. I can pull out the disc a little later.
Yeah, because I do remember watching it maybe. Yeah, but that was really good too. That was actually a really fun version.
It was a great ending. It was an absolutely great ending, as I remember. Yeah. And Superman, Batman, Apocalypse has one of the best scores. Whoever did the score for that was just right on the money. I mean, they were scoring it as if it was like a Hollywood blockbuster, not an animated film. So, but speaking of DC films, Steve, what's the big bit of news?
Well, apparently, there's now two, basically the equivalent of the Kevin Feige, if you will, head of development or head of creative development for Marvel. Now you have two gentlemen who are the head of creative development for the Warner Brothers DC film universe. One of them, you might recall, I can't remember the name right now escapes me because I unfortunately am using my phone as my camera today, if you haven't noticed. Who has been an executive producer on some of the Conjuring universe films, and he brings that connected universe ideal sort of with him as well, but in a very sort of alternative way. And then also the director that we know and has been around as just a fun, goofy, gory, irreverent filmmaker for the past 15 or so years. The first film I ever saw of his was Slither. If you haven't, check it out, because it is goofy, gory, goopy, and has basically everybody who is in almost all of his films after that. who make appearances. But yeah, James Gunn has now joined officially Warner Brothers as one of the two new heads of creative development for the DC universe of films. I don't know how this would affect any future projects with Disney Marvel, but my guess is
Oh,
they
he's
won't be
done
doing
after.
those.
Yeah.
He's done after the
His
GOT
contract
series.
is
Yeah,
his
yeah,
contract is either being bought out or it's just over.
yeah, that's over.
Yeah. So it'll
So
be the
it's Peter-
third Guardians of the Galaxy film next year, and that'll probably be the last you'll see from him, or at least for a long time, because I'm sure
Yeah.
he'll be exclusive to DC for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Peter
The
Safran.
gentleman's named
Safran
Peter
is his name.
Safran. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter Safran, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So between the two of them, and I was kind of almost jokingly to Bill, like, oh great, now we're gonna see like Annabelle pop up in all the DC movies from now on. If you have seen Shazam: Fury of the Gods trailer that's been running almost nonstop at the movies for the past month or so, yes, Annabelle does make an appearance in the background of one of the scenes with the child psychologist or the teacher or whatever. And I was like, oh no, it's already started. It happened before it was
And
announced, and now it's started.
The Conjuring is a Warner's owned universe, right?
I
That's a
believe so, yeah.
Warner's own, right? Okay.
I have seen none of them.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I know about them
I
because I
don't.
was reading about when the recent Conjuring comic book series happened, and I know that
Yeah.
Annabelle is part of it, and Lalandra or whatever the hell that thing is, and the Nun
La Llorona,
part of
the
it.
Nun.
Yeah.
So I can't
But
recall 100%.
that whole like phenomenon of PG-13 horror films, I find fascinating. You know
Yeah.
that they're like, their core audience is teenage girls on Friday night.
Yeah.
I just find that fascinating that how they can cut these films that they like just roll up to an R but not over it. Yeah, I always find
Yeah.
that kind of fascinating.
Some of it pushes it a
I'm
little
sure
bit, but
some
they
of those
don't
were
say
ours,
fuck.
but
So there we go.
yeah. Well, you can say one fuck in a PG-13.
you get one.
You get
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
But it can't
Or
be in
you
relation to a
can
sex
lobby
act.
for
Yeah.
for it if it's not used in a particular context.
Yeah.
Isn't that
So
interesting?
exciting. Motion Picture Association of America, people. But no, I'm really excited for it. And there was one little bit of news again, kind of going along with the Warner Discovery. The shakeups that have been happening over there for the upcoming slate of films and projects for TV and streaming. The new long time planned Green Lantern series has now sort of put a little bit of a halt in the direction it was going, and has now been retooled to focus just on Jon Stewart.
Well, not just no. That's not what I read.
As
What I read
the
is
primary figure, as
it's still a
opposed to
core.
focusing
It's
on
still a core of
yeah
but it's less
yeah
focused on the team and more on John as the figurehead.
correct and
But
they
Alan
originally were
Scott
going to
and Guy
really
Gardner, they're still in the mix. They're still there.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah, but they're probably not going to be as prominent. So they might have like I don't know how they're going to organize it. Is it going to be essentially an anthology series? Is it going
Well,
to be
it's still Green Lantern core. So
yeah
yeah.
but is
So,
it going to be like a continuous story, kind of like Titans or Doom Patrol for each season,
we'll
or is it
know
going to
when
be
we
like
see
a
it.
series of
We'll know when
I mean
we
we're not
see
going to know because they haven't really gotten
it. Yeah.
too far into the
There
production
hasn't
yet.
been one
So
frame
we'll see.
shot of it. Unlike Blue
Yeah,
Beetle, which I understand is like that's James Gunn's first task is overseeing the post production and
yeah.
retooling it a little bit. And apparently, also Gunn wants to release Batgirl in some form.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That he wants to explore that once he gets in, and
Can they though? Like we had that conversation last time. I mean, there's some tax purposes.
after a period, you can release anything.
Okay, yeah, that's
If the taxes are if it's beyond the tax threshold, it might be like 3-4 years, but you can do it.
right.
Yeah. Which is it's frustrating for those of us who actually do want to see it.
I want to see
But
everything.
eventually, yeah.
I don't understand though. Like, well, maybe I'll see it. I want to see everything.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Jesus
It exists. I want to see it.
The only thing news
like the
wise I
Turkish
have
Superman.
is some pre-order some pre-order cutoff dates for previews. So the guy who did that Gargoyles piece, Alex Regal, his book Ninja Funk is going to be coming out pretty soon, so make sure you're getting that. And then IDW is putting out a Gargoyles comic, so I want everybody to pre-order 17 copies. Exactly 17 copies. I will take nothing less.
Is it IDW or Dynamite?
Dynamite. It is
Yeah.
Dynamite. You're right. I was, for some reason, I was thinking IDW, but it's Dynamite. So regardless, 17 copies.
Speaking of that Ninja Funk, I think also hit a really a pretty exciting threshold for pre-orders.
5,000 pre-orders. Yeah,
which is wild.
That's huge. That is huge.
And I think it's from a new, I would say, physical publisher, because they have been an online platform for a while.
Mm-hmm.
We got this. What is it? I have Alpha Betas just right over, out of focus somewhere. Alpha Beta's #1, which was the first, I think, physical floppy issue that they've released. But Whatnot, that's what it is. Whatnot.
Yes.
So they Ninja Funk is going to be one of their big titles, and I think there's a couple other titles that they're releasing as well as
Whatnot
monthly
had
floppies.
a very strange presence at New York Comic Con.
Really?
It's very strange. You like waiting online to get like empty cans of soda. It was weird. A bad idea naturally had the most annoying, but
bad idea is just annoying. Like every comic shop person I've talked to hates it. I enjoyed the books that they put out. A lot of the books that they put out, I love. They're
it's
great.
like, even if I have interest in it, by the time the stain of the propaganda like it like festers, I've lost interest.
My thing is, if you make it purposefully hard for me to get your books, I've got enough to read.
Yeah,
I'm leaving books. I'm leaving books on the shelf at places that are easy to get to. It's accessible. You're making it harder for me to get. I'm good.
Yeah,
I can leave you there.
Next,
right? So, do we want to talk about comics?
Why not?
Comics.
I mean, it's in the name of the show.
It's a good name.
I guess.
I'm really trying to be a good co-host. I really am. It's really tough, man.
We will, and see. We'll keep it short today. We'll keep it short today. We'll talk about one book each. How about that? How about that? We do one book each.
I have one event to talk about, if that's okay.
But
you know me, I
book, event, series. It's all good. Yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll do that. All right, Steve. Let's start as we always do with you. What is something you're reading that you're digging?
So I love Lucy Knisley, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She is a great cartoonist. She's done several books, mostly autobiographical, about her life, about some pretty dramatic moments in her life. One was basically about her, and then we've talked about it on the show, where she talked about her struggles to conceive, and the difficulty it was actually having her child. Over time, and the downsides and all that happening. She's also had more lighthearted fare like Relish, where she actually included a lot of recipes and talked about food and food habits and everything in just really great detail. Her Instagram and her, all of her online posts are hilarious. She loves to put herself as a raccoon who likes to eat garbage food and tells you the best way to make that garbage food. She's a hoot, but she's also done, I would say, more all readers or junior readers books as well. And I picked up one, and this is actually, it's not generally super new. This one actually came out about 2 years ago, called Stepping Stones. And she does tend to keep things autobiographical. And so this is kind of, in a way, her retelling of her childhood after her parents divorced and her mother, remarried a gentleman who had a farm away from the city. So, started her life as a city kid and then having to move to this farm, and the life that comes with it. And, obviously it's a big adjustment for her, or for the character in the book that is her, or representing her. who just really hates the idea that she now has to work on this farm. It wasn't her idea; it's her mom's idea. It's her, her stepdad. She's not really into the whole thing, and it's her responsibility to take care of the chickens. And so there's a lot of interesting like little moments where you're reading a book that's geared more towards younger readers, but there's a lot that I'm looking at here, and I'm like, I am like this kid. She's here's all the stuff I have to do to bring up the coop, to put the coop together, to get the hay, to put all the hay down, and how to build the feeder and put the feed in for the chickens, but it's a really fascinating look at what young people who work on a farm are expected to do, especially if they're unfortunately new to agriculture. She and her mother work the farmers market as well and sell some of the things that they grow on the farm, which is not what she wants to do. She is an artist. She wants to do art. So her little project is to redo the sign in chalk that they have at the farmers market. And eventually, she's joined by her stepfather's two daughters, who also don't really get the whole farm thing. They're not big fans. They don't want to be there. And here they have a new woman who is ostensibly their stepmom, and this new sister who they have nothing in common with. And the two sisters they're very different. One of them's just kind of a jerk and hates everything, that happens, and also likes to one up with all of her conversations. And then the younger sister is just scared of everything and just squeezed out by life on the farm. So she's kind of useless in where she's introduced. But through the entirety of the book, it's really just a very pleasant story of how not just these girls sort of coming together and finding some common ground, in their shared experience here on a farm where none of them chose to be. But it's also a good family book. So it talks about the family dynamic from the perspective of, one of the young girls. And it is very autobiographical, although it's not exact. Lucy does at the end of the book have some really great author's notes on it, sort of talking about her life when she was moved to the farm as a young girl, and sort of the relationship she established there, and how she learned to be who she was, while still also being an excellent artist and developing her craft, her style. And it's really just comes out in this book. It's such a pleasant read. It's a quick read for adults, I think. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling just to read. And when I was finished with it, I was like, yay. So all ages books, and we talked about this on here, all ages books can be for all ages. It's just, they're more accessible to young readers, they're more accessible to kids, but they're also good to share with kids. If you find a book that's good, that you enjoy, that younger people in your life may also enjoy, this is a good opportunity to introduce them to comics, to have something that you can both read and both really have a lot to talk about, which is pretty cool to have. I mean, sometimes it's hard for younger kids nowadays to get into superhero comics that are normally on the shelf. Getting them into sort of like younger, more accessible storylines and maybe less threatening looking characters who aren't carrying like tons of guns and shooting people left and right, or having massive psychological existential crises every other page or so. Something
Steve,
like this.
I honestly don't know what you're talking about, because we've been spotlighting a lot of the DC books that
Absolutely.
formerly Ink and Zoom, and certainly there are Marvel counterparts to that.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you're saying.
Oh no, I'm just saying that there's a lot of other stuff out there that's not put out by DC, that's not comic book character related. That's actually good
you made it whether you wanted to or not. You made it sound like that was the only option.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry to misspeak if anybody misunderstood that. There is plenty that's being put out by DC right now, especially Marvel has been making some headway into this as well, into more sort of all ages books that aren't either too kiddie or just kind of on that cusp.
Yeah.
But there's some really great ones we've talked about.
Since it's kind of like a kissing cousin, I think we should also mention the Star Wars all ages books.
Oh yeah, yeah. which
They
just
recently
came
transitioned from
back in
IDW
house. Yeah.
to Dark House. Yeah.
Yeah, those IDW Star Wars Adventures books are a lot of fun as well. But if you're looking for something that's not necessarily a very well known, franchise or something that has superheroes in it, but you want to get somebody interested in comics who's a younger person, this is definitely a good introduction. I would say compare this to something that DC put out that wasn't necessarily directly, um, you know, directly connected to a superhero kind of thing, other than just vaguely. Last year, or the year before, when we talked about our much beloved slash hated Lois Lane and the friendship, whatever, that was an attempt of having something that didn't have anything really to do with superheroes other than Lois Lane as a character, but was supposed to be an all ages story that people could really enjoy. I didn't think it worked well. This does.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is definitely good. There's no superhero stuff in there. It's very sort of like very straightforward family dynamic with farm chores.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. So I recommend it. Lucy Knisley's Stepping Stones. It's put out by Random House Kids.
Yeah. I also have to say, I don't know where this comes from. I don't think it's from the Monkees song. But stepping stones it's always been one of my favorite phrases. Like since
Interesting.
yeah,
Huh.
I've always loved that phrase. Yeah.
I was listening to that song earlier today, as a matter of fact.
Duffy also has an amazing song called Stepping Stone. Different
That's
song,
funny.
but great song. Stepping Stone.
Yeah, I think she's.
And who's
I
the
think she's gonna do
publisher
a
on that?
follow up to this.
Steve? Who's
It's
the
Random
publisher on
House Kids.
that? Okay.
RH Kids. Random House Kids. So, it's available at other bookstores as well. Probably going to find it in sort of the kids section in most cases, but
Okay.
yeah, pick it up if you see it.
All right. Over to Caleb. Caleb, what's something you're reading that you're digging?
So I'm going to jump in the Wayback Bin, if you guys are cool with that, and take us back to 1985, which really isn't that far way back. But so I am doing. It's 2 years before I came along, but still, it's good year. I was born in the
37 years ago.
Yeah, in 1987. But so I've got into a habit
How
of
old do
when
you
I
think I was in 1985?
1985, you were 20, 21,
18.
18. I knew that's okay. Yeah, I knew you. 'Cause I knew you were right around there, but you had just blossomed into your adulthood.
I was just going into college.
Yep.
In 85.
Blossoming.
I've gotten into the habit of when I do cardio in the mornings. I've been riding the stationary bike, 3 days a week. So when I do that, the way it's set up, I can take an omnibus or a comic. I can read while I pedal away. So I've been trying to knock out some of these omniboo that I have been collecting forever and haven't cracked open yet. So I've been reading New Mutants and working my way through it. I can read through 4 issues in a session, and so I just got through reading a very well-known series in that, and it's New Mutants 25 through 28. It's the first appearance of Legion. And I just kind of fell in love with this whole story. I'd never actually read his first appearance before. I'd never read that section of Marvel. So at the time, it's in between Secret Wars and Secret Wars 2. In fact, right after this is when Secret Wars 2 would happen. So you've got the great team of Chris Claremont and Bill Sienkiewicz doing some really amazing work. This is some of my favorite Bill Sienkiewicz work because he's kind of in that weird metamorphosis where he's absolutely playing with this, with the style that he's famous for. That he gets kind of avant-garde with it, but there's still that Neil Adams in there. Like you can still see the traces of it, even though he is getting out into more of like interpretive art. So it's really great. But the lots of stuff is going on with X-Men, including have been depowered, and Xavier is dedicating a whole lot of time into this young team of superheroes, the New Mutants, which it's that famous lineup. You've got Cannonball, you've got Sunspot, you've got Rain, you've got all of these really cool groups of people. Already in the series, you've been established who is relationship. If can call it, with Moira McTaggart, who is at the same time dating Banshee over in Scotland. But Moira calls him up because she's got problems, and she's like, "Hey, I've, I've been helping folks out, and I've got an issue because we have got this young man who is the son of a really good friend of mine, and he's going through it. Like he's done some things, he's broken, and so
I want to break out into a Moira
oh,
imitation. Oh, begosh and begorra. He's
every
going.
time I say every time I say Moira, I think of Moira from Schitt's Creek now. So, but so yeah, she's been having issues, right? And so there's this young kid that's a son of a friend of hers, and he is actually she says, "Hey, I think he's a mutant," and she knows, like, she's keeping a secret, right? She knows more than she's telling. So Xavier packs up the whole crew, and they all take a trip to Scotland to go see what's going on. And they are this young man named David Heller, and David Heller has uh, emerged as a telepath, very strong telepath, the one who can do a lot. But actually, what he does is when things happen, he sucks people into his mind because, and again, this is the 1980s, so there are some things done in this book that the vernacular is different than what we would use today. But they talk about how he's both schizophrenic, and that's the book. There's a line in the book that says, he's schizophrenic, and it's a push off of his autism, which we know now that those are two different things, right? So you have to read this in the context of the time that it's written. But it talks about him having these mental health issues and these this being other, this different. He is cognitively different than other people, but he's in a coma at this point in time, and so it's because of this it's like psychic lash out where he took out two people essentially, and they don't know what happened to him. So they go to him, and there's an old friend who happens to be waiting on him. It's the boy's mother, and Xavier remembers her because they had a une petite tryst back in the day. And things start lining up, I think, for Xavier. But spoiler warnings from 1985. David Heller turns out to be Professor Xavier's son, which is why he's such a powerful psychic. But David experienced some trauma early on in his childhood that helped. It basically broke his mind, right? And so there's wonderful visual of all of these lines his mind that are shattered that they're trying to put back together. But as the team, they quickly figure out the only way to get in there and figure out what's going on is to actually go into David's mind. And this is a person who, again, schizophrenic. He's got different personalities that present themselves. So they go in, and they meet a ton. I say ton. There's really they meet three characters who are key. One of them is a pyrotechnic. The other one is kind of he's Jack Wayne. He's kind of the man's man, walks around with a big Bowie knife. And the other one is a character that they, again, context of the time it's written, they just call the Arab. And he's walking through. And he's set up the Arab has set up a mental barrier in David's mind to kind of keep him, at least it appears, to keep him trapped, keep him sucked in, and keep him subdued, to get his way with him, overpower mental facility. But there's more than that. It turns out that he's really just another aspect of David's mind that has mimicked someone who caused some problems before. The Arab was who they aren't makes it was part, like, they were the attack the Israelis at the Olympics. So I don't know if they ever keyed on that, but essentially there was a team of Middle Easterners, an assault team that came in to assassinate a bunch of Israelis at an event. And that's where this happened at. So in my mind, just in the light of history, I'm thinking the Olympics, right? So, but
72 Munich.
Yeah, so that would make sense. So they get it and they realize that, hey, this is not the case. Like, he was mimicked off of that person, but he's been trying to help rebuild this boy's brain. And so eventually Xavier is able to go in with the help of some of his teammates to go in and pull him back out and save him from a really, really heartfelt story Bill Sienkiewicz's art is amazing. Of course, it is. It's just beautiful. The way that he breaks things, the fracturing, the way he does his panels, fantastic storytelling. Claremont story, it's a Claremont story. Like it's good. He is nothing if not a verbose bastard. I don't think he's ever met a word that he couldn't find four other words to fulfill for. So it's wordy as hell. But that's fine, right? Like that's just part of it. It's still an amazing story. I highly enjoy it. In the meantime, all of this is going on. Magneto has been doing some other stuff, and he is now back on Earth and has a human lover, and he is trying to regain his powers. He got damaged a little bit, so this is going to come up to a point to where Secret Wars 2 happens, and then Magneto leads the X-Men for I think the first time for a little bit, or at least he leads the New Mutants in the X-Men. So fun pinpoint. It was great to go back and revisit this. The omnibus is excellent. It's got a lot of fun stuff in it. I have fell in love with Sam Guthrie's character. I never really cared about Cannonball before, but there's no way you can't fall in love
You
with his
have a
character before.
Cannonball vibe, I've got to say.
Yeah, I can see that.
You,
Yeah,
you
I,
definitely do. You
after
definitely
reading,
do.
especially after reading the early iteration of the character, I'm like, yeah, I've got some. There's some Sam Guthrie. Yeah, I get that. And it makes perfect sense, right? So it's fun. It's super. It was kind of their answer to the Teen Titans, I think. And it really is fun. I've enjoyed going back and reading it. So I highly recommend it if anybody get your hands on it. And, I'm not even going to talk about Saga because that's just oh my god, good. But yeah, I've absolutely loved taking this little trip back to memory lane. So, Legion, I met him.
Yeah, it's interesting with New Mutants. I didn't read comics for 4 years, and when I came back in early '85, my first issue of New Mutants, which was my first issue of New Mutants,
Mm-hmm.
was the first Secret Wars
Mm-hmm.
2 tie-in, which was I think literally the next issue
Yeah,
beyond
just after
the
this.
Legions. And from what I remembered of Sienkiewicz, he was a Neil Adams clone.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him mostly from the art in the Moon Knight backups in the Hulk magazine, the Hulk's color
Mm-hmm.
magazine, and it was great. It was great art, but it was Neil Adams, and it was it was one of those things where like it took me a little bit of time to match the two names, and I just remember just specifically Warlock, just
Yeah.
what a exquisite artistic creation that
Yep.
is,
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think of when I think of Bill Sienkiewicz and New Mutants. I think of Warlock. I think
Yep.
of the giant, crazy, hair type, shapes, the shapes of his eyes, just the constant reconfiguring of his face, and like how detailed the arms and the fingers were, because they always appeared like they were all made of completely different parts, and
Mm-hmm.
just every panel he was being reconfigured, and I just really like that is what I think of when I think of Bill Sienkiewicz and New Mutants. Period. I just think of Warlock.
Well,
You
he
know.
throws the visuals for a loop, right? He reminds you that
Mhm.
this can be like comic art can be anything at any time. You can have a Neil Adams style, which again at this time you still see very close elements of Neil Adams. Like he's getting looser as it goes on,
yeah,
but you still see, especially on some of those panels where he gets up close and does the floating head thing, still very Neil Adams. But he reminds you that hey, I can just make a cartoon character. I can make it as cartoony as I want to and make it fit in and work with these panels. You like Dave Sim would go on to do something very similar in his stuff with the work that they did. And it's just styles, and you didn't see that a lot in mainstream comics. Again,
yeah.
I'm saying that as somebody who is looking at this through the light of history. Now, I wasn't there when it was coming out, so I don't know if there were other things doing that. But at least from my reading, and I dabble in this older stuff, in the Bronze Age stuff, that's the earliest I've seen them doing that. This meshing, this hodgepodge of just cartoony but with real artistry, and I love it. I think it's wonderful. It does
Yeah.
something. It does for the story.
But also, I think Sienkiewicz also had a tremendous impact on Claremont
Yeah.
because, when you go back and you read the early stuff, and it's interesting you mentioned Sam. Sam, from the original graphic novel and the first few
Hmm.
issues, Sam is the only character that's fleshed out.
Yeah.
You know,
Interesting.
Karma. I mean, there's nothing to those characters. And then when Sienkiewicz comes in, and then they bring in magic, and then Danny has that transformative
Yeah.
demon bear arc. Then all of them benefit from it.
I would say Rain is a little bit. I think you're right. Sam is the one who's the most fleshed out. Rain is a little bit because you get some of her history with being the foster child and also
Yeah,
the religious influence there. But
but
but yeah,
it doesn't go.
no,
It doesn't
you're
take a
right.
step into really understanding that character.
Well,
Because
and
I almost
DaCosta,
get the feeling also from the when you read about the creation of it, this is kind of created under duress
yeah,
with Claremont. They were going to do this with him or without him, and it seemed that he was like resisting uh, becoming, having affection for these characters,
yeah.
and
Mm.
that gradually happens.
I
And
think if you go back and you listen to old interviews and stuff now, though, I think Wheezy was a big pusher
yeah,
of this. Like, yeah, Wheezy was very much like, and she's like, some of the editorial notes are just very obviously her. I mean, some of them she signs, but there's some of the editorial notes, and I'm just like, that came from Wheezy,
yeah,
because she loves like
Hmm.
these young, these formative characters, and you can see that in her own works that
yeah,
she goes
Yeah.
on and does, but. So I think she was very influential, and I think you're right. The mix between like what Sienkiewicz was doing on the page, the success of it because it was successful, and then
yeah,
also Wheezy in the background helping him like come up with reasons to really enjoy this and to broach out and do things that he couldn't do in the main X-Men line. I think he did fall in love with it. I really
yeah,
do. I think you can see the turn in
yeah,
it where he was like he doubled down. He went all in on it, and it happens a little bit before the Legion series. I think it happened right around. I would argue that it happened right before the first Secret Wars. That he gets this moment where he's like, "Nope, I'm all in. Let's go.
yeah,
Let's just go."
yeah. It's
And
like
and
this is becoming something I didn't anticipate it becoming, and let's run with it.
yeah,
And
Hmm.
I think you just hit on it, that that it is it is an alignment of factors, that it is Sienkiewicz on art, that it is Wheezy as editor, and that it also is fan interactions and certain characters are becoming fan favorites, and
yeah.
their rationale for why they're becoming favorites of them, whether it is representation or some other element of in that character's background, that they are gelling with that character, and that if you're reading that and you're the writer, that has to have an effect on you. It has to.
I think
Hmm.
the turning point is where they introduce Roma. So it's the Roma story because they North America. That's me. It really takes off because you have all these elements. So
Yeah.
they're in Nova Roma. You meet Magma, who's this really super powered natural element tied into an old world. Roberto da Costa becomes a really fleshed out character with all the daddy issues that he has, and he's able to loop in the Hellfire Club with it. Plus,
Yeah.
you just get to go in and you get to see South America and play with that. And also, Danny has a really, like I said, a transformative moment in South America as far as like her own person. So in that storyline, you just get all of this. Sam Guthrie he hits puberty and decides that he's attracted to girls because he's just all in on it. Costa's like sleeping with anybody and everybody who will let him. The queer elements bloom in that moment. Like there's just like it gets real gay real fast. So
Mhm.
I think like that to me was a turning point. But
Mm.
I'm learning to love the book as I'm more and more as I read it. I
Yeah.
really do appreciate what it
Cool.
was. So
Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna spend some time with the other one of the big two, and there actually is. Speaking of Secret Wars 2, uh, there actually is an event that's happening right now, which it seems to me there should be a bit more notoriety around it.
Mm.
I guess it's
Yeah.
just the tone that fandom has at this point,
yeah,
of kind of fatigue with events,
Yeah.
because also Marvel's, there's two major Marvel events happening right now, and they don't seem to be garnering many headlines. But right now we have Dark Crisis happening over the DC universe, or it has been appropriately retitled Dark Crisis on
On
Infinite
Infinite
Earths.
Earth.
Okay, so what is happening on Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. In issue 4, well, prior to this, the Justice League is dead, but they're not really dead. They're off in sort of these pocket universes of the mind that Pariah, who was, I wouldn't say one of the heroes of Crisis on Infinite Earths, one of the protagonists, certainly not an antagonist in the original series. He's because the original crisis happened because of him in his head. He decides he's going to restore the infinite Earths, the multiverse as he knew it is going to be reformed. But to do this, he has to kill the Justice League, but not really kill them. And there is a force out there, even worse than the Anti-Monitor, known as the Great Darkness, that was originally a throwaway reference in an issue of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, just so that there was a Great Darkness to complement the Great Darkness saga that happens later. It's kind of convoluted. Let's just say that a little bit. It seems to be uh, an excuse to get some really fun battle scenes, and the battle scenes are fun because you have competing villain groups in a sense. Uh, Black Adam is the only survivor of the Justice League, and while he is frustrated by the hero's turn, he goes to the Legion of Doom to help restore the order because Deathstroke has been infected with what they believe is the Great Darkness and brings together all these B-list characters that are kicking the A-list villains' characters' ass. You get a lot of cool moments like that. There is a sort of Justice League forming, but it ends up being the Titans in issue 5 that really reform and try to save the day. There are interesting things in there. One thing I think that I like, not just the restoration of the Justice Society of America to DC's timeline, but the establishment of Alan Scott as a major character. That happens through the main series and also through many of the tie-ins. That clearly is something that is going to be a factor going forward, and I like that. With I always have a chip on my shoulder about Crisis on Infinite Earths because I returned to comics when it happened. Nothing like it had ever been attempted. Um, as much affection as people have for Marvel Comics, superheroes, Secret Wars, it's effectively a big Avenger story with some guest stars. I mean that's basically what it is.
Yep, and
I don't
Spider-Man.
think I don't think anything like this had ever been attempted, and to me, it's in that kind of stratosphere like Citizen Kane and Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and Catcher in the Rye, where they're kind of above criticism. So, people reading Crisis on Infinite Earths from a 2022 perspective, it doesn't work, folks. You got to put your mindset back a little bit and appreciate it from that thing. So I'm always a bit suspect, but I'm always also a bit excited when we do have a new crisis. Um, and you know some have had very strong DNA ties to the original, some haven't, but this one, with Pariah and some of the other elements, has it. um I'm enjoying it enough. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Is that a good way of
yeah,
putting it?
you're
I'm
you're
enjoying.
entertained.
Entertained. I think Joshua Williamson is having the time of his life writing this. I think he knows that this is not Nobel Prize worth literature worth
He
stuff.
gets to play
Uh,
with all the toys,
it
all the
does.
toys.
And there is something that's really you know kid fun when you read that the title of the next issue is Death of the DC Universe. So we do know that this is leading to a reset. We do
Mhm.
know that this is coupled with what was it called? DC History or something, Steve, that they announced?
History of the DC universe?
History. There's
No.
something. There's something. It
Shoot.
involves
Yes.
DC's history. Yeah. So that's coming, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I also love that this is a series that's ending in 2022, and then whatever comes
Hmm.
back is next year. I
Yes.
know that Philip Kennedy Johnson and Tom Taylor have talked a little bit about the Superman plans after this year. Um,
Hmm.
so we are going to have a very different status quo. In terms of the tie-ins, though, they're all over the map. The Flash issues are wonderful. Jeremy Adams
Mm.
is a really good writer. He really understands the Flash universe, and more specifically, the ties that the Flash universe has to other areas of the DC universe. In the most recent issue, 786, the Flash family, and it really is a Flash family at this point. If you want to get caught up, um, are basically one of the main teams, like assisting all the other teams in whatever tasks they have to do in battling Deathstroke's forces. Um, Really, really fun tie-in. These are earth-shattering circumstances, but you still get wonderful moments like uh, Jay West and Animal Girl, buddy bikers. They really don't like each other, and the dialogue there is sweet. It sounds like
That's
two
cool.
preteens that really don't like each other. Wonderful appearance by the Justice Society in here. Great disses on Robin, on Damien. I just have I just have to. I love this scene so much, and I hate to spoil it, but it's just too good not to spoil. Um, so of course Damien's dissing uh, Flash's daughter, Wally West's daughter, and her line here is, "My mom says that mean people are mean because they are trying to make up for not feeling as good as everyone else." So he walks away all pissed, and then Cassie and Stephanie approach her and say, "I'm Cassie, I'm Stephanie, and we'd like to be your new best friends." Um, so, and that tells you vibes about what you know what it's like dealing in another family with Damien as part of it. Uh, I'm really impressed with Jeremy Adams as a writer, and I'm really happy he's on the Flash, and I look forward to what he's doing next. Dark Crisis, Young Justice. I think um, Young Justice, from a continuity standpoint, is it's always like a head scratcher now with
Mm.
how things have laid out, and like when exactly the Young Justice team would have taken place, and certain characters being excised from continuity then back in. uh, and this doesn't really address that. It has fun with it. I just wish it was a more fun read because it's too slow moving. And then the other tie-ins, I'm worthless. I hate to say it. This Wonder Woman, it was it, it, Etta, it's a Wonder Woman in her head, and Etta Candy is president, and oh, it's really not good, and it's frustrating because this was written by who the hell wrote this? Uh, by who the hell wrote this? Teenie Howard, whose work I've always
Oh.
enjoyed. But
Yeah.
it feel like all of these one shots that specifically deal with the Justice League members, they really feel rushed. It really
Mm.
feels like they just had like a few weeks to put this together, and they're just benefiting from the Dark Crisis trade dress for sales. Um, One thing I didn't really like that much, but I think Caleb, you would, because you have a fondness for this series, is Dark Crisis: The Deadly Green. That's focused on Swamp Thing and co-written by by Ram V. Do you have this?
I don't. So I'm not. I'm not reading any of the dark stuff. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But I don't think you necessarily need to read that for
Okay.
this one. Uh, Basically, there's a seance being put together because, again, we are talking about it's not just the cosmic forces where there's chaos. The magical forces are
All the
where there's
parliaments
some
and everything.
disruption. And this brings together a rather strange team of Superman, Raven, and the Levi version of Swamp Thing
Yep.
in a dream world that exists in Alan Scott's head. So uh,
Yeah.
they do retrieve something, like something I won't spoil is they do retrieve something that's incredibly important to the original Crisis, which may be, it might just be a MacGuffin, but it also be a major plot point for Dark Crisis. I wish I enjoyed it more. I have a feeling you will enjoy it more.
I'll check it out. I
You
mean, like you could have led with Superman, Zatanna, and Levi in Alan Scott's head.
Yeah. And there's a point where Superman and it's a John Kent Superman and Levi become one, and I just love this page.
Yeah, okay, I'll pick that up. I'll call
Okay.
the shop and have them do it.
I sold you on it.
I would, I also would like to live in Alan Scott's head.
Yeah.
The place I'd sign up to be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so I am a little surprised that there's not as much of as big a promotional push, and this seems to be at both companies. I think they realize that people have a particular kind of event fatigue.
Yeah.
I love events when they're done well. I don't think there's anything better. I don't think there's anything better than a cross company event and everything's running smoothly and there's great stories that come out of it. Love it.
So it's interesting though, for a cross company event. Like, I know they're having all the one shots and stuff, but I'm reading a lot of DC. There's very little things that are being affected in most of the books that I'm reading by this.
Yeah.
Like they're not tapping into the main books, and in some ways it's a good thing because they're not disrupting the story that's being told. But if this is a line-wide reset and this is a major thing happening, you should see some influence. But I'm reading Superman. I'm reading action. I'm reading Detective. I'm reading Wonder Woman. None of DC.
Yeah.
And in the main books, it's not affected at all.
No, and I think it's going to be pretty clear. There's like pre-Dark Crisis, post-Dark Crisis.
Yeah.
There have been a few stories that have had a note in it.
Yeah.
Which but you are right. It's not being disruptive to the main storylines. And
how much does Dark Crisis, if at all, how much does it loop into like the dark metal stuff, or does it at all?
Well, it all just sort of like it's all from that kind of whole era.
They do have some specific references to the Batman that laughs in Perpetua. They do have some very specific references early in Dark Crisis, in that was a catalyst for this.
Okay,
but it doesn't. You wouldn't have had to know specifically what happened then.
See, that's what the name association is what I avoid. So I read metal. I tried to read Dark Knight's metal. It's not my cup of tea. I didn't enjoy it at all. So I stayed away from this because I thought it was a direct link to it because of the dark vernacular in the title. I was like, I don't care.
And I also think that was intentional too. I really do.
Yeah. Well, because they didn't add that subtitle on Infinite Earth.
The fourth issue,
until about the fourth issue. Yeah. So like
and it
before
wasn't
that,
solicited that way either.
Yeah, it felt like it was supposed to be, and I haven't read all that much with it, to be honest. But I'm really behind my DC. But where they said, like time wise, because if you're talking about the death of the Justice League, which would be pretty major news or major impact on all the other books, I think they're mostly the little bubbles are this takes place. This takes place right before blah blah blah, or right after da da da.
75,
So it just kind of like puts all the storylines of the main titles all over the place, kind of like in their own bubble, or at least their own continuity, that you don't have to worry about what's happening in Dark Crisis to understand what's going on in these individual books, because they're not really tying in at all. But I'm really curious, because there's going to be a line-wide reset in January, what this means for all those other books that have active storylines. Are all the storylines for the different Batman books, Detective and Action, is everything going to stop in December? Are all those storylines going to be tied up and done? And then January we start with brand new storylines that somehow tie into the new reality of things?
We'll have to see. I will say though that there isn't a slew of cancellations.
Yeah.
No, which is good.
So that's
the big one.
Like Batman Urban Legends announced the cancellation. I Am Bat. Some of the Bat books have.
They can
But
you can carve off like 30 Bat books, and you'll still have 30 Bat books left.
Still have 30 other ones left over.
yeah,
Well, there was that really big cancellation that sort of like, woke straightness when Robin was canceled. I mean, like, people just don't want to have heterosexuals shoved down their throats every day, with all of those books. I do want to tie into that Rich Johnston article. I don't
An
usually
amazing
identify, like,
article. That was
I don't usually enjoy his stuff other than sort of like, oh, interesting rumor or interesting sort of like snarky comment. This was such a great article making fun of all the bounding into comics, and we got this covered articles that were all about hating Superman Son of Kal-El because, oh, well, it's not the number one book, or it's selling so poorly, and because it has all this bisexual gay stuff, blah, blah, blah. That was a great selling book compared to a lot of other books that's, during that same period. It made 18 issues, which again is much longer than a lot of other books these days that restart every 12 issues. And it was ended specifically because they were bringing Superman back in the new continuity, the post-crisis, post-Dark Crisis situation. But John Kent's getting his own. He's getting his own miniseries after that. He's going to have a very prominent role all over the Superman family books.
Is it a miniseries? I thought it was an ongoing. I thought Adventures
No,
of
I think
John
it's just
Kent was ongoing.
I think it was only 6 issues.
I thought that was ongoing, but
well, if it's ongoing, great.
We don't even know what age he's going to be at the end of this, so
he'll be 12 again, maybe.
As long as don't change the character. I finally bought into him being a teenager. Don't change him now. I just want to see.
Plus, I love Teen John and Teen Damien are a lot of fun together too.
The most interesting rumor I've heard about the future is that both he and Tim Drake shed their current bows and they two get together. So
that's what
really is.
So part of me
really is a world's finest team. That's
part of me wants that.
Yeah.
But we kind of already have that in Midnighter and Apollo, but I still want it. Like,
true.
Yeah.
I don't care. As long as we're getting more Midnighter and Apollo, that's fine. Like, because that's a good funnel for this. But no, we were talking the other day offline. I would, and I realize it's speculation and we're just being nerds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would love to see John and Tim actually get together. And then have, I mean, because you have the father figures of Bruce and Clark being their fathers, but they can turn to Midnighter and Apollo as being the gay Superman and gay Batman for and I'm not even joking, but for just advice. About how to be superheroes in this world. Who are
and that would also be a really interesting device to bring those characters specifically into their respective families.
Yeah, it's a flip, right?
There is no reason why Midnighter cannot be a fixture in Gotham or Bloodhaven.
Well, he already kind of is in Bloodhaven. I mean, him and Dick have that great relationship. Midnighter and Dick have a wonderful relationship. In a variety of contexts.
Yeah. Apollo tends to be a little bit more of a tragic figure sometimes. Like, oh, he's been depowered, or he's been, whatever. Less of a Superman friend, though.
So we're looking at 11 o'clock EST, so it's time to start wrapping this show up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment. In the bear community, when you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. I just was looking at Growler. I forgot about Woof. You Woof and Gurr. Yeah, it's great. And we do something very similar here where we woof at something that may be a comic book, but it also may be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative. Anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your Woof of the Week?
Oh, because we've been sort of like out of this for 4 weeks. There's been so much on TV that has just been thrown at my face every single week. There's new shows, new series, new everything. I could talk about how amazing Andor was and how disappointing I felt House of the Dragon was, which I know is not super popular of an opinion, but and how I like Lord of the Rings more than House of the Dragon. But you know what? I'm gonna go like really simple. Something you can watch on broadcast TV every Tuesday night on the CW. There is a series called Winchesters that just started. It just had its third episode this week, and it is the prequel series to Supernatural, the long running, I guess, like teen girl jam for all of like the early to mid 2000s. I loved Supernatural as well. I got into it a couple seasons into it. Devoured the original seasons on DVD and just went nuts with it for about 10 seasons. It went for another five, 3 or 4. It
15
never,
seasons.
15 seasons. So 10 seasons, I watched it religiously, and then started around like 11. I kind of fell off of it and missed like the last several seasons. But talk about lore. I mean, lore, continuity, everything this series has, a lot of it. And the one cool thing they would dabble back and forth would be to kind of flash back to the parents, John and Mary Winchester. And so the Winchesters as a series goes back to the 60s, late 60s. John's just coming back from Vietnam. Mary's been looking for her dad, and they get together with a really, great Scooby gang to go and find her father, find what happened to his father, and delve into the Men of Letters mythos, which was a really big thing that came up, I think, around season 8 or season 9 in the original series. But there's some great characters they've introduced. They've got a non-binary character who is very sexually fluid. And from like the moment that they come on, it's fantastic cast. I think it's a really great young cast of actors that really mesh very well after the first episode. And they're just really, it's fun to watch. It's cool to kind of see this part of the supernatural mythos and jump into it again. So don't be scared if you never watched any Supernatural or weren't a real fan. You can jump right into this and not really miss a beat. You'll actually, if you go back and watch Supernatural after this, you're going to be kind of ahead of the game. I think a little bit. But yeah,
I
it's
have
good.
a very quick CW question that's not a Winchester's question, but is sort of tied to Winchester's. Has the
Sure.
professional started yet?
Yes.
And that's after Winchester's.
Correct. Yeah,
So
I think
that
it's at
means
9 o'clock. Winchester
on certain nights, you're going to have Tom Welling at 8 o'clock and Tom Welling at 9 o'clock.
Tom Welling is. Oh no, I don't think he's in the Winchesters.
Yes, he is.
Is he?
He's been cast as the grandfather.
Oh, he hasn't shown up yet. So I'm wondering if he's going to be one of the.
He starts in
like
the
the
fifth
father
episode.
Interesting.
Okay, so you're going to get some Tom Welling at 8 o'clock and 9
Super Tom Welling. Now, to be fair, The Professionals actually aired originally overseas
in Europe
last year. So
yeah,
so it's about a year or two old already.
It's a new but a not new show yet.
Yeah. New to us, but not new to anybody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's great. Tuesday nights, CW, Winchesters.
Okay, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
My wolf of the week actually goes out to a novel that I picked up in Portland that I could not put down. I had to put it down, but I just didn't want to. It's called Just by Looking at Him by Ryan O'Connell. So I was not familiar with Ryan O'Connell. Apparently, I was the only one because both Steve and my husband and several other people I've talked to are like, "Oh yeah, he's the guy who did the show Special on Netflix, and he has a series of this, and he's also helping writing the new Queer series." But this is his first kind of novel. I think it's his first. But if you don't know anything about him, some of it is very self-referential, but it's also not. He is also doing some really creative fiction stuff. So the book is about this character named Elliot. He is he's a Hollywood writer. You're going to see some overlap now that I've actually started watching Special. There is some overlap here. He is a writer for a Hollywood studio that he's on a show that makes the blurb says it makes King of Queens look like highbrow television. So it's just real dumb. It's not very fulfilling. It's just right, but he makes a decent living at it, so he's making a lot of money. He's been in a relationship with his partner for 6 years when the book starts. Things are, they're kind of in a rut. It's not great, but they're still doing whatever. All of his life is complicated and complex, not only for the fact that he is a queer man, but he has got, he was born with, actually, shit, I just went blank. Help me out, Steve. Yeah, yes. So he has this degenerative muscle disorder that he was born with. and it affects everything from the way that people look at him walking on the street to the way he feels every day when he wakes up to the way he can do things such as walking or standing to the way that he has sex. Everything is affected by his this muscular dystrophy that he has. So it's a difficult thing, but he is a very sexually aware person. So you get this really interesting character who is very funny, throughout life has learned comedy, and he makes his living off of it, but he also employs it in his day to day life. But he's on the downhill slope when the story starts. He's drinking way too much. He's unhappy. He's unfulfilled. And his boss, who is this very well-to-do, very pretentious, old-class gay man, just comes in bragging one day about the amazing sex that he had with a just not dead gorgeous sex worker, and he's like, "Yeah, I paid for it, so it's just it's what I did." And so he plants a seed, and so Elliot starts doing that. He actually calls up the same sex worker and starts paying for sex, and kind of has this block. And through that, there's a whole series of events that unfold from that. It's a really good book. The short of it all is he has to get rid of everything to find himself. Because of this moment, everything in his life changes, from his relationship with his partner to his relationship with his dad to his friend group to a person that he develops feelings for and eventually finds a way to have a relationship with that we don't know what it is, but he's very we don't know what it's going to be. But everything changes for him through this, including the way that he sees himself and the way that he sees himself through his disability. On a surface level, this book it's about a cisgendered white gay man. On the other hand, he is a person with a disability, and so it is what is navigating the queer spaces and the queer world look like through the mindset and the experiences of someone who has disability. And look, the gay world is very visual, whether we like it or not. Like we all are people who we like what we like and we see what we see, and it can be a very vapid space in some circles. And so he talks about what it's like to explore those spaces, and what it's like to seek out sex and stuff. So good, really good book. Go watch his thing special online. Really, really, really enjoyed it. So didn't want to put it down.
If you're watching the video, you can see me really running out of gas, so I'm going to speed through my Wolf of the Week. And my Wolf of the Week goes out to a band, and they're a band named Nation of Language. They're out of Brooklyn, New York. They've come out with 2 albums. You can't step into New York City or basically any major city and not throw a rock and hit 2 or 3 80s influenced bands, but you will it'll be very difficult for you to hit the rock with bands that have songs to back that up with. And I think that's what that sets this band apart with, is their songwriting is just a notch above a lot of newer bands. They've had 2 albums that have come out. The first was Introduction Presence in 2020. The second was last year's A Way Forward. They have a 3rd album coming out next year. There's a brand new single that was just released on vinyl and also through the various downloading and streaming platforms, called From the Hill. Let me say that a little more clearly. From the Hill. If you're listening to the audio version, that's the song that's going to be heard on the outro for this episode, so you can sample that. I don't have anything to show you because all my exposure has been through streaming, but I am going to rectify that with some of the vinyl purchases of their catalog. I've fallen in love with this group. Again, that's Nation of Language, and you can find out more about them at nationoflanguage.com. If you're in Europe for the remainder of the year, they are touring there through late October to mid-November. So you can see them live, and I'm certain come the new year, there'll be many live dates in the States. Nation of Language. That's my Wolf of the Week. Okay, again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you want to listen to us, please download us through through Apple Podcast. You can listen to us through Stitcher Radio and many of the other podcasting platforms. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Woof.